President Trump wants to abandon Ukraine because he wants the rest of the world, especially the American military, to start focusing on taking China. And I don't mean take over or invade China, but he definitely wants to put much more military presence around that country, much more than there is today. And he also wants Russia to help him with that. In my opinion, there are two main camps with how to deal with Russia. There's the first camp, which I happen to be a part of, which says you have to humiliate, beat, and isolate Russia to make sure that they can't support any of our other enemies. The second camp is we need to make Russia our friend so they can help us contain China without some major war taking place. But that first camp is concerned that if we act very nice to Russia, they are going to start taking more European territory and try to bully the rest of Western Europe and, of course, Eastern Europe. And the only reason why people think that is because that's been Russia's policy for 300 years at the very least. They're worried that Russia will keep up that behavior, and anytime someone tries to check Russia, they'll just threaten to stop being a counter to Chinese influence. But you may be asking, why does our current president think that Putin would ever help us with China? Because Russia is afraid of China, that's why. I highly recommend reading this article, What Are the Weaknesses of the Russia-China Relationship? Compare Russia and China's GDP from 1990 to today, and you will see that China has easily eclipsed Russia. Russia's is pretty much flat. Look at this chart comparing Central Asia with either Russia or China as the largest trading partner. In 2000, these countries clearly had Russia as their largest, but now, in 2020, it's China. If you go back to 2020, before the Russia-Ukraine war, there was quite a disproportionate trade between Russia and China. 18% of all Russian trade went to China, but only 2% of Chinese trade went to Russia. If you look at the same figure in 2024, you'll see that only 3.8% of China's trade goes to Russia, while 30.7% of Russia's trade goes to China. But of course, there's more than just an economic threat. While the Russian propaganda machine is strong and it's convincing everyone that they're bosom buddies with China, a 2017 poll from the Russian Academy of Sciences found that more than 1 in 3 Russians view China's increasing presence as expansion. And what do I mean by presence? China has been buying up a lot of the arable land in eastern Siberia. In 2018, Chinese citizens owned or leased approximately 16% of the total land used for agriculture in that area. Now, like I said before, because Russia desperately needs China for so many reasons, there's a lot of propaganda keeping all of those fear and suspicions well under cover. But there's clearly a huge economic advantage that China has over Russia, along with a diplomatic advantage. Maybe not a military one, but they have enough of a military to pose some kind of threat to Russia, to the point where Russia would have no other choice but to use the threat of nukes to deter China. But that's not a position you want to be in with your direct southern neighbor who has so much more power than you. And that is why Trump thinks he can somehow win over Putin, because why not have an American president who is such a China hawk on your side? So if Trump abandons Ukraine and leaves it to Europe and Russia to figure it out, then he gets a twofer, because 1, he may have something to sweeten the pot with Putin, and 2, he can divert resources away from a place that is not China. But there is no way that Putin would ever alienate China simply because they are landlocked and Russia is so dependent on China to consume their energy and other commodities, because that is what Russia's economy is based on. There's also the fact that Russia has a very long history of not honoring treaties and agreements, so any deal that we come up with them could easily be reneged. The only way we could ever possibly get Russia on our side against China is if there is a regime change, and that can come soon enough. I am the Geo Hussar, but this is my alt account. Thanks for watching.